Coming up on the show, beating the heat will be the name of the game right here in Metro Atlanta. We're going to try to help you stay cool as temperatures will be climbing, and I mean it's going to be hot. Also, we're going to take a look inside of GDOT's Nerve Center, which helps you stay safe should you break down along our highways here. And we're going to find out what's getting into alligators in one Georgia waterway. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines, and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to give their take on today's top stories, and we try to have just a little bit of fun when we can, right? All right, let's start you off this morning with a look at the city of Atlanta from our Georgia Tech cam. You can see where we have crystal clear skies. Looks beautiful on the outside. It's going to be very, very nice. Today is the first day of summer. Welcome to summer, folks. You made it, and our temperatures are responding right on cue. We're looking at temperatures getting into the 90s today. It's going to be hot, and our temperatures will be climbing over the next couple of days. So it's going to be very important that you try to stay safe on the outside. Joining us right now is Stephen Palti, Dr. Stephen Palti. He is the Chief Medical Officer for the United Healthcare of Georgia. Dr. Palti, welcome to the show.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As we start to get into these summer months, we know that it can become oppressive around here, especially when we talk about the humidity. We have an extended period of 90-degree temperatures, so we're entering into what we call a heat wave. So what is your advice for families trying to balance the benefits of getting inside and not exposing themselves to too much sun exposure?
Well, I think important to, if you're going to be outside, try and avoid the heat of the day, the middle of the day. Try and get out early when it's still a little bit cooler. That's always a great tip to take. But if you are going to be outside, everybody likes to be outdoors in this warmer weather. Very important to keep yourself very well hydrated. Especially trying to avoid those sodas and sports drinks. And if you're out there, rather drink water. And if you're at home and coming indoors intermittently, especially with children, things like homemade smoothies with coconut water or milk or yogurt can be a good option for them to keep well hydrated. Just very important to keep that hydration up.
Explain to us why water would be more important. We see the ads with all these sports drinks, maybe, for kids, that would be more of the attraction. But why is water more important?
Well, I think water, you want to try and avoid all those sugary drinks, which are, are not very healthy for you in the long term. Mm-hmm. And also water is, it's much more freely available, and it just really rehydrates you a lot better than those sports drinks. Those are really more adapted for adults who are doing activities. For children, things like water is a lot more beneficial.
Is it healthy for you to take breaks? We always tell people, when you're going to be outside and you have to work outside, to take breaks. Is that harder on your body, or does that do your body really good?
No, you really do need to take breaks, and if possible, try and get indoors or to some shaded area to try and avoid the heat and the sun. Also very important to make sure if you are outdoors to be wearing sunscreen. Wear sunglasses, long sleeves if you're able to, a hat, and use a sunscreen that's at least, sun protection factor 15 or higher. And very important with sunscreen is to reapply it every 2 hours. And for those people who like to swim a lot, when you get out of the water and dry off, really need to reapply that sunscreen right away.
Is there other things that people need to know, especially heading to the pool? You talked about the sunscreen, but what about, preventing drownings, things like that? A lot of people will be heading to the water.
Correct, yeah. Especially if you're going to be doing any water sports, you really need to be wearing life jackets anytime that you're near the water. Also for children, obviously you want to try and enroll them in swimming lessons. Keep a very close eye on children when they're in the swimming pool, because drowning is one of the leading causes of death for children 1 to 4. And also, it's a great tip for parents to take a CPR class, so that if there is somebody who's in distress or has an event at a swimming pool, that they are trained and know how to deal with that.
Speaking of distress, how do you know when you're in distress? How do you know you're suffering from dehydration or heat exhaustion or those things? What are signs that we need to look out for?
Well, obviously, children are more susceptible to that. But things that can happen is you can have a little bit of confusion. They may seem to be acting a little bit strange. Often the mucous membranes will seem dry, and they'll be slurring their words or can't quite get the words out correctly. They also, may stop sweating, especially in the hot weather. So those are all signs to look for. But again, just keep taking those breaks in cool weather or in cool environment or in the water, and drinking plenty of liquids can really try and avoid that.
I think there is a myth out there that people that look like me, darker skinned people, don't have to apply sunscreen. I know that that's a myth. Talk to me about that and how often we need to apply it.
Everybody needs to be using sunscreen, because skin cancer, more skin cancers are diagnosed than all the other cancers combined every year. So, wow. And most of the skin cancers are related to sun exposure. So everybody needs to be wearing sunscreen. And especially, SPF 15 or greater, and reapplication is very important. People forget to do that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we need to stay as safe as possible. Anything else we need to know as parents with our children on days like this? Because I know when I was younger, my mother used to shoo me outside, just get outside and play all day. Anything else we need to know as parents to watch out for our children?
I think that's a great point. Try and get kids, to go outside and avoid, a lot of use of screens, computers, iPads, things like that, mm-hmm. because it has been shown that prolonged use of screens in children does lead to nearsightedness in the long term. So really very important to try and limit that time, especially in the summer when it's so nice to be out there and doing activities.
Let me one more point. The children and shades, is that important as well? I mean, does that sun exposure to your eyes, would that lead to long-term issues maybe for kids?
Yeah, it is important. Obviously, very small children, it's very hard for them to keep any kind of sun protection on, any sunglasses. But as children get older and they are able to keep sunglasses on, that's very important. Also, wearing a hat is really very important to try and shade those exposed areas, especially, that are vulnerable on the top of the head and the back of the neck.
There you go. All right. Dr. Stephen Palti, Chief Medical Officer with United Healthcare of Georgia. Really appreciate you being with us today, and thanks for those tips.
Thanks for having me.
All right, not a problem. All right, we are looking at sunshine really for the rest of the weekend and into next week. It's going to be hot around here, folks. We're looking at those temperatures heating up into the 90s, and we're going to stay there. We'll hit 90 today. And whenever you see 90-degree temperatures 3 days in a row or better, that's a heat wave, folks, and we're going to have that this week, as you can see, especially as we head into next week. We're talking mid to upper 90s, and you factor in that humidity, it's going to feel like the triple digits out there, so you're going to need to stay safe. Take Dr. Palti's advice and stay safe and beat the heat, folks. It's going to be hot. Very small chances for rain. Don't go anywhere. We're back right after this. Welcome back to the show. Today, a new deadline for President Donald Trump to decide whether to order a U.S. airstrike targeting Iran's nuclear program. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr, who's been covering politics for years now. And Alice, why has the president decided on a 2-week timeline to make a decision?
Yeah, Chesley, we heard about this from the White House press secretary yesterday. She quoted him as saying that given that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, that's the reason to give it 2 weeks before making any final move. And he has said that he likes to wait until the last second to make his decisions. So now he's kind of staking out these parameters of how long that might be. We know that European diplomats are meeting today with Iranian officials in Geneva. No one from the White House or from the U.S. is going to be represented there, but it's a sign of the fact that there is diplomatic movement. There are efforts underway to use this 2-week window to try to come up with a peaceful diplomatic resolution.
Is there any indication which way maybe he's leaning?
Yeah, I mean, he has said, I may or I may not do it, that nobody knows what I'm going to do is what he's saying publicly. He has indicated that the window for diplomacy, up until yesterday, he'd been saying the window for diplomacy was closing, and now it's a 2-week window, apparently. That's the parameter being set. But he's said multiple times that Iran should have taken a deal when there were weeks of negotiations going on leading up to this moment, and it kind of indicated that he wasn't really in the mood to negotiate anymore, that he felt perhaps Iran had missed its chance, comments that were leaning toward possibly, taking a step in the force direction. But this 2-week kind of breather certainly provides for that moment for a different path to happen.
Okay, so one person not in the inner circle for the president and the director of national intelligence being silent. Why is this the case? Or being sidelined, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so this is reporting that NBC News has come up with, that inside the White House, President Trump is increasingly relying on a small group of advisors, including his vice president and his secretary of state, to make his choice. And this is according to 2 defense officials and a senior administration official speaking to NBC News. Officials have also said that Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has been sidelined, that she's not part of that group that's helping him make these critical decisions. The president recently publicly dismissed Gabbard's March testimony that the intelligence community did not believe Iranian leadership had authorized building a nuclear weapon, that the intelligence community does not believe that work toward a nuclear weapon is actively underway. President Trump said, "I don't care what she said," quote, there, that he thinks that Iran was very close to having a weapon. The White House asserts Iran has all it needs to make a bomb, and though the process would take some time, President Trump has been adamant time and again that that cannot happen, that he believes that a nuclear-armed Iran is an Iran that would actually use a nuclear weapon.
Any more in the news, Alice, on the back and forth strikes that we talked about yesterday between Israel and Iran?
Yeah, there has been some developments there. We can say that overnight there were more strikes back and forth. Israel is saying that it intercepted hundreds of missiles from Iran overnight. We've seen images of at least one building in southern Israel up in flames, and first responders say they've treated 5 people with minor injuries. Israeli forces say their fighter jets struck dozens of targets in the Iranian capital, including the headquarters for Iran's nuclear weapons program. Israel had vowed to increase the intensity of its attacks after a missile hit a major Israeli hospital yesterday, injuring at least 71 people. And NBC News has confirmed that hospital is within a mile of a military compound that Iran says was the intended target, also the same area where many of the Iranian strikes were landing today.
All right, Alice Barr, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for the insight. All right, plenty more stories for you coming up, folks. Plus, a new partnership is helping neighborhood businesses thrive. We're going to explain how next. Stay with us. Welcome back. More neighborhoods across Metro Atlanta are getting help opening businesses and staying open thanks to a new partnership between Homegrown and Flock Safety. Joining us now is Michael Davis. He is the founder and CEO of Homegrown, here to explain how the Thriving City Fund is turning everyday entrepreneurs into community cornerstones. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chelsea. Good to meet you.
All right.
Big fan of the work.
Good to see you as well. Talk to us about this fund and how it came about and its need.
Yeah, so Flock Safety is a cornerstone technology business here in Atlanta, helps keep our communities safe. And the insight we had together was that a thriving community is not just one that is safe. It's also one that's dynamic, that's full of small businesses, the small businesses that create jobs, that create wealth, and that play an important role in what it means to be an Atlantan. And so the 2 of our companies came together to launch what we call the Thriving Cities Fund, which is really all about supporting small business entrepreneurs across America, starting in Atlanta, in an incredibly powerful way, which is helping them to expand their businesses.
So you guys come together, you put up an investment into these businesses to help them thrive, right? Now, how does that fund, how does the Thriving Cities Fund decide which neighborhoods or businesses to make a priority?
Yeah, so on your first question, it's an initial $10 million commitment.
Wow.
That we've already deployed about $1 million into Atlanta in the last 3 weeks, which is really something we're super excited about. And our aspiration is that we can go do this at a far larger scale, not just in cities like Atlanta, but in communities all across America. And our goals for the program are really to drive as much job creation as possible. The company I founded, Homegrown, our investments over the course of about 12 months helped create 500 jobs just throughout the Atlanta metropolitan area. And that was on a pretty small scale. So imagine what happens when you turbocharge that and you put more capital into our communities. Ultimately, it's something that I think we can all get behind.
Yeah. Besides funding, do you guys give hands-on support to these entrepreneurs to get once they get a part of the program? Yeah.
So one of the really interesting things about brick and mortar entrepreneurship, and I should be clear here, is that we are backing brick and mortar retail entrepreneurs. Think about the person who has the coffee shop in your neighborhood, or the nail salon you go to, or the dentist you attend. Like, those are the businesses that we're supporting through the Thriving Cities Fund. Unfortunately, these entrepreneurs face an incredibly lonely journey. They oftentimes don't have an advisory board around them. They oftentimes don't have people they can talk to get help as they grow. And so we do more than just invest capital into these businesses. We also do give a little bit of hands-on support, but critically, we allow them to do it their way. We're not going to get too involved in their business.
Gotcha. We'd love to hear some of the early success stories that you have led to impacts in our community. Do you have any?
Yeah, so I've got a few. I'll tell you two. There's a company here in town called Switchyards. Switchyards is a neighborhood work club. It's kind of like a combination between a boutique hotel lobby, a college library, and they smash these two things together to create this new kind of membership coffee club. And we started working with Switchyards when they had 8 locations. In the span of about 14 months, we've helped them get to almost 30 locations. And that's just one example. Another example is the nail salon Sugarcoat Beauty and Nails. They're up to almost 20 locations throughout the Atlanta metropolitan area and the Southeast. We've helped them open about 5 new units. And by the way, when we do this, it's not just the jobs that are created in that location. It's also the contractors who are building the space. It's the community around itself that has more options where people can go to. And again, this is something we can all get behind.
Absolutely.
Right? Like it's really great to support small business.
All right, Michael Davis, thanks so much for what you're doing for our community, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chelsea.
All right, take care. Don't go anywhere, folks. It's officially summertime. GDOT's Natalie Dale is going to join us to talk about how they can help us through this summertime traffic. We'll talk about that coming up. All right, welcome back to the show. Summertime is here, and for many of us, we want to hit the road, right? But what happens when your plans encounter a little bit of bumpiness along the way there? That's where GDOT's Transportation Management Center steps in and helps out. Here now is friend of the show, GDOT spokesperson Natalie Dale, to explain how this high-tech hub keeps traffic moving and keeps drivers safe. Welcome back to the show.
Chesley, happy Friday as always. We just wanted to talk a little bit about today because we have so many people hitting the road for summer travel season, but we also have so many projects going on in the metro area and honestly across the state. We have a lot going on our roads. We wanted to talk about something that kind of gets lost in the shuffle, and that is one of the aspects of the 511 Center. We have talked about how they can bring you a hero unit. We have talked about how you can call to get directions if there's a backup or a road closure. But not a lot of people know that this is the best and the proper way to report a road issue to the department. Nothing makes my heart patter more than when I am on social media and I see someone say, there's a pothole on 285. We love it, but that doesn't necessarily get to us to fix it. Social media, a great tool, but the best and proper way to report an issue to GDOT is dialing 511, and one of our operators who are there 24/7 can help you get that problem properly reported. Very, very important. Natalie, let me ask you this. Do you run into people that have issues with so many cameras that you have out there? You have hundreds of miles to monitor. Do people issue or talk to you about privacy concerns at all? Well, so our cameras, this is another great question. Our cameras are real-time traffic data. They are live. They are not recording. So we do get a lot of requests, sometimes even from y'all, for footage of something that happened. Our cameras, we have thousands of cameras statewide. It would be financially a huge burden, really, to the department and to the state to have that, to be able to retain that much footage. And quite frankly, that's really not the purpose of it. The purpose is live, real-time traffic management. So any of those operators at 511 Center can pull up any of those 1,000 cameras statewide. They get live footage. So we're not recording, we're not tracking. That is just for traffic management purposes, not really for people management purposes. Gotcha. All right. Finally, you have some updates on some overnight closures coming up? Right. So we talked about how many projects are going on in the metro area. We have talked with y'all about the west side interchange, the east side interchange. We also have the I-285 auxiliary lane project that is going on the top end there. It sort of started after Transform finished, so we still have construction in that area. So from tonight, weather permitting, and you know better than anyone, the weather in Atlanta right now has just been the gift that keeps on giving, right? So weather permitting, we'll be working overnight this Friday to next Friday, so the 20th to about the 27th, from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. And that's 2 lanes closed in each direction between Roswell and Riverside. That's really impactful for that area. So that's why we try to do it overnight. But during the week, it'll be 2 lanes closed. During the weekend, 1 lane closed. So as always, plan ahead. If you can avoid it, please do. It'll save you some angst. It'll save us some angst. Keep our crew safe.
Natalie, we always appreciate you coming on the show and giving us all that insight. Have a good weekend.
Always good talking with you. Thanks.
All right, take care. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. If you're looking for a job that could lead to a great career, coming up next, Cheryl Preheim's going to look at some local opportunities. Don't go anywhere. These days, you hear a lot about companies downsizing right now, and there's a lot of businesses even going through layoffs. But there's a lot of work on demand, jobs right here in Georgia, industries that need workers desperately. 11Alive is committed to letting you know exactly where the best opportunities are. Cheryl Preheim joins us now with more on her Better Work series. Cheryl, you're focused this week on a trade that most people don't even think about.
You know, I hadn't thought a lot about it, Chesley, not top of mind, but it's all around you. You will not find a single apartment, a home, or a business that doesn't include sheet metal. So I spent the day with the folks over at Smart Local 85. They showed me how it's all done and how big the need is. So spoiler alert, we'll talk more about this in a second. The need's huge. But when you think about sheet metal, think about air ducts for any heating or cooling system, for ceilings all around you. And we just don't notice these kinds of things, but it's integral and it's an intricate process. So I learned how to and cut the sheets, to mold them, and then put the pieces of the puzzle together. This great group with the Georgia Building Trades Academy Youth Build, they invited me into this awesome apprenticeship program. So it's a group, Chesley, supported by United Way of Greater Atlanta, Career Ready ATL. And when the skilled people do it, it's fast and precise. When I did it, Chesley, I was slow, I was clumsy, I was so humbled and then amazed how awesome they are. But it's so cool to see the machinery, how it's all comes together. It took me about 20 minutes just to make 1 cube for an HVAC tube. So at my rate, I was like, hey, I'd have an air conditioning duct done in about 2027.
Cheryl, what were you most surprised about the process?
You know, actually, it was math. There is a ton of math required. Every single student told me that's what surprised them about it too. So sheet metal is really a trade about precision. The foundations on decimals and fractions, and the layouts for the metal is all about triangulation. So there's a classroom time for all the apprentices to learn all of the math. You know, if that math's off by a fraction of an inch, the cut's off, and that means anything you build's off as well. And metal's expensive to work with, so mistakes cost time and money. So Chesley, I was really, really surprised about all the math.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. When you talk about these jobs in demand, how big is the need?
You know, we talked a lot about this with the people at that union shop. Skylar Worthy with Local 85 told me they're actually having to bring skilled sheet metal workers into Georgia from other states just to finish jobs happening around the metro. So paying more money to bring people in, they'd love that money just to go to local workers. So the minute that these young people are trained, there is work ready for them, more work than they could do, and it's good pay too. And we'll take you through that entire process, a free training program, lay out all of it for you on 11Alive News at 11 p.m.
Cheryl, quick question. Do you find is that younger people just aren't interested in these particular jobs, and so they got to go back and reach back, or people just don't know?
You know, it's a great question, Chesley. A lot of these young people are interested, but no one had really talked to them about it because there's sort of like up till now been this maybe just single focus towards more of a 4-year degree, even though there are really high-paying jobs in demand out there in skilled trades. So we're hearing more and more from community partners, city partners, even Governor Kemp talking about we've got to do a better job of communicating the need, not just to young people, but maybe anybody looking for a career shift, saying, hey, this might be where your lane is, where your calling is, and there is a real need for it. So it's just connecting those dots for people.
So you get a chance to go out and not only only see these jobs, but you get a chance to try your hand at it as well. Do you find it very difficult? What's the highlights?
I tell you, it's really humbling and a lot of fun, because what you see is just how skilled these people are and just how much fun it is to be a part of it. And then what an important building block, no pun intended, for our entire city. This is really what's happening all around us. You're never going to drive down the highway and not see a building project. And so for those kinds of trades, you just see that these are people making a mark on the city that's lasting. And to get to see just how hard it is by trying and seeing it, it's been a ton of fun.
Man, sounds good. I'm going to have to go out with you on one of these jobs one day, learn another trade.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I think I'm probably scared my husband a little bit, because we'll have a little DIY project at home. I'm like, well, let me try and bend a little piece of metal for you.
Wow.
See how we can do.
Now, I understand the healthcare is one of the big ones too.
Yeah, you know what, Chesley? This is probably the biggest one, and the one that impacts all of us. So we talk a lot about skilled trades, but there are a lot of industries, from computers to healthcare, that need a lot of skilled workers in the metro area. And think about healthcare, right? Everybody needs medical care at some point. Someone you love does. A CEO at Wellstar, in fact, told me that within 5 or 10 years in Georgia, there's going to be a 35,000 person shortage just in the nursing field. She said, listen, we've come to understand we can't recruit ourselves out of this problem. They have to train people and then make that happen. So there's a free program within Wellstar that they will train you for whatever you want your next job to be. And that's anything from someone who wants to work in the food industry in a hospital, to janitorial, to a CNA, surge tech, nurse, you name it. But that is how much of a focus and investment there is to say, hey, if you want to get your foot in the door in healthcare in Georgia, there will not only be a job for you, but there will be free training to keep climbing as high as you want to go in job opportunity and in earning potential opportunity.
So will you need a degree for some of these jobs, or you don't?
Most of them you don't. That Wellstar training program, it's a surge tech program, so you are in the hospital and you are getting a little bit of a digital online class that's free, and you do it on your own time, because they understand people can't say, well, I'll just stop working for 8 months and not have a paycheck while I'm getting ready for my next career. You can do it while you're working in your current job, have a free online program to get the training you need, then your hands-on training in the hospital. So it's like gassing the plane as it's in flight to get you to your next location.
Wow, Cheryl, good stuff right there. I really appreciate you joining us.
I love being with you, Chesley. Thanks a lot.
All right. Yeah, we have all the stories that Cheryl has done in more than a dozen industries, and step-by-step plans of how you can take advantage of these free training programs in the city to find better work and your next opportunity. It's all on 11alive.com/betterwork. All right, a new documentary works to offer a heartfelt portrait of how one small metro Atlanta community showcases transformation, cultural fusion, and community spirit, all through the lens of its residents. Caroline Kamick, the co-director and co-executive producer of the film Made in Doraville, joins us now. And Caroline, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. You're a Dorville native, right? So what makes this community so special?
We really have always tried to figure that out. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we were all brought up in kind of a blue collar, nobody had any money. There really wasn't middle. I can't think of anybody that you could even call middle class, quite frankly. So I've just felt like we've all had very same humble beginnings. And it was just, it's a very small community that just, I feel like the whole reason that we were the way we were was to produce this documentary. That's the only explanation that it keeps coming to me.
So what made you want to do a documentary on this small town?
Well, a guy that I grew up with, very close family friend, has 2 houses in Dorville that he rents out. And he's very nostalgic and very sentimental too. And he said he knew that I was equally the same way and was so passionate about how we were brought up. And he said every time he drives out of there, he thinks of a successful story of somebody that came out of Dorville, or just the memories that we have. And he just was inspired. And he said, I think we should do a movie about Dorville. And I wanted to laugh. I mean, I didn't know how to react, but because he's such a businessman, I took him seriously. That was like the only reason why I didn't just laugh at all. I just felt like there was something behind that, and I knew he was sentimental too. It just was, I was just meant to do it.
Yeah.
And he told me, and anybody that knows me knows why he would pick me, because he knew I would take off and run. And I just couldn't let it go. I could not, even though I didn't know what I was doing, I could not let it go.
Yeah. Dorville has changed dramatically over the years, right? A little small factory town to now a diverse, multicultural hub there. What was the biggest challenges in capturing all that as far as its evolution goes?
Well, a lot of this was just so organic and so meant to be. The girl that wrote it, who's 2 years younger than me, it took me about 2 years to find someone to write it. I mean, and I was working it from every way I could to try to sell the idea to anyone. And she wanted to write it about my life because we had a tragedy in my family that brought the community together, and we didn't want to touch onto it too much because my family was not super comfortable with that, and it wasn't necessary. But it enabled us to tell it a little bit around my life. And I graduated from the school that we went to. And so you could genuinely see where it went from this all-white community to this international community that I taught. And then we interviewed even a girl that I coached in cheerleading, and now she teaches. It's now Cross Keys High School. It wasn't the same high school because now our high school is a middle school. But I taught her there, and I taught her in high school. And so it just, it really became very natural because I have such a connection with, I only taught for 10 years, but I have such a connection with all my old kids, and everyone just means so much to me.
You have a very special voice in this documentary, one that's close to us, Chief Meteorologist Chris Holcomb. How did you get that together?
Well, Chris and I lifeguarded at the Dorville City Pool, and you get to know somebody quite well when you're working 7 days a week all day long. And Chris, I always say I taught Chris how to do gymnastics, and we used to flip all the time outside in the grass off the diving boards, and we became really, really close, and have stayed close. All of us from that pool have stayed close. And he, you know, I wanted him to do this, but of course I knew how busy he was, you know. And he longed for me to ask for him to do the voiceover, you know, or do something in it. And it just worked out perfect because the movie is called Made in Dorville. Yeah. And Chris was made in Dorville.
Yes, he was.
You know, we watched I watched him become what he is today, and he's one of our biggest success stories out of Dorville. Well,
we can't wait to see this film, and thank you for talking about it with us today, Caroline. Really appreciate you. Made in Dorville debuts tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. at the Terra Theater on Cheshire Bridge Road. Seats are limited, so make sure you check ahead. Make sure you get those tickets so you can check this out. Narrated by our own Chris Holcomb. Plenty more stories for you on The Take. You're watching The Take. We'll be back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. Oil prices surge again as tensions flare in the Middle East. CNN's Sable Marcellus joins us now from the NASDAQ marketplace in New York City. And you have a new standoff involving Trump and the Iran supreme leaders seem to be leading to investors on edge.
Good morning, Chesley. They are, and the oil market is feeling that apprehension. Oil prices rose by about 3% on Thursday after Israel signaled it plans to intensify its military attacks against Iran. Israeli officials say a barrage of Iranian missiles caused extensive damage to a major hospital on Thursday. Then, earlier this morning, Brent crude, the global benchmark, slid back about 3%, with investors monitoring any word on heightened U.S. involvement. President Trump says he will decide on any possible military action within 2 weeks. U.S. crude gained 84 cents, trading around $74 a barrel. Chesley?
Sabil, I understand that Samsung has a fresh plan to outpace its Chinese competitor on the foldable phone race.
That's right. That plan goes into effect next month when Samsung is expected to unveil a thinner version of its flagship foldable Galaxy Z series smartphone. This as it challenges Chinese rivals to deliver the slimmest devices to the market. Folding phones, which have a single screen that can fold in half, were first launched by Samsung in 2019. In a blog post earlier this month, Samsung claims its new Galaxy Z series will be the thinnest, lightest, and most advanced foldable yet. But the Chinese aren't Samsung's only competitors. Apple says it plans to start production on a folding iPhone next year.
Wow.
Chesley?
Okay, all right. You got new numbers revealing just how many millionaires now call United States home. Can't wait to hear this.
Yes. So the headlines may be full of tough economic news lately, but the U.S. is still cranking out millionaires. That's according to Swiss bank UBS. According to their latest reporting, the U.S. is home to the most millionaires of any country. UBS estimates our country minted 379,000 new millionaires in 2024. That's a pace of just about 1,000 new millionaires a day. Mainland China came in second for 2024, creating 141,000 new millionaires. Taking a look globally, fortunes are concentrated toward the top. UBS estimates some 60 million individuals hold more than $226 trillion combined, nearly half of the world's wealth. Of that group, less than 1%, about 15 centibillionaires, boast a combined worth of $2.4 trillion. Chesley?
Yeah, I have a penny to add to that. That's about it. All right, lastly, Fox makes a splashy move to expand its sports footprint.
They sure are. Fox Corporation has acquired the Mexican sports broadcasting platform Caliente TV. Carlos Martinez, who has worked at Turner, Discovery, and Fox, has been chosen by Fox as its executive vice president and managing director for Latin America. Fox is bulking up its sports content as streaming becomes the top way for viewers to watch TV. Chesley?
All right, Sabil Marcellus, thanks for joining us for today. Really appreciate all that you've given us. All right, there's plenty more stories for you coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're back right after this. Mercury is silently building up in Georgia's wetlands, and new research from UGA shows alligators are carrying some of the highest levels yet recorded. Here now is Kristen Zamitis. She's a graduate of UGA School of Ecology and is the lead author on this study. Kristen, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
All right, describe some of the dangers of mercury.
Mercury can accumulate in humans and wildlife and can cause a lot of issues like cognitization and issues with reproduction. So a lot of times animals will hunt slower, run slower, have issues making decisions, and also have lower reproductivity.
Did the levels make you look at alligators in particular, or what was the drive toward alligators?
I actually was already doing research with alligators, and while we were catching them, we were collecting tissue samples and blood samples. And so we thought it'd be worthwhile to examine all of the samples we'd already collected and see what was going on in the environment.
So what were you expecting to find in these mercury levels so higher in these areas compared to other areas?
Well, there are a lot of studies that have been done in other areas with alligators, and some of the sites like Jekyll and Yawkey actually represent what we find throughout the environment, that it does exist in almost all ecosystems. The Okefenokee Swamp in particular is about 8 times higher than these other 2 sites. We do think this has a lot to do with the environment itself. So the swamp is very acidic. The acidic waters are due to the tannins that are present. It's a very beautiful ecosystem, lots of really black reflective water. But this does then accumulate the process of methylation of mercury, which makes it more bioavailable. Yeah. When mercury is more bioavailable, it can accumulate quicker into living beings. And there's also a possibility that there are some really large anthropogenic or human-dominated activities happening nearby that could be releasing atmospheric mercury.
So for communities that hunt or fish, especially in these waterways or nearby, what practical takeaways do you have for them?
I think the most important thing is to be checking the EPD consumption guidelines. So that almost every single body of water, whether it's freshwater or on the coastal locations, will have some sort of guideline on how often you should be fishing and which species you should avoid or limit. A lot of these consumption guidelines are in terms of how many meals per week or meals per month. I would keep in mind that a lot of these consumption guidelines could be out of date due to a lack of funding and resources. And so just err on the side of caution and really limit your intake of species that could be accumulating mercury.
Yeah, talk to me again about those health risks for people in particular who may not understand your research, right? And get out there and they want to do it for sport, but then may partake in what they catch.
Yeah, the health risks of mercury are pretty serious, and it's not just mercury. There are other toxins in the environment that we did not look at. So you could be consuming things like PFAS, which are a forever chemical. It's in plastic, it's in everything. Mercury, all kinds of things. And these are all going to cause issues with your organs, your internal organs, your ability to make rational thoughts. It could cause issues with your ability to reproduce, and it can make you very ill. In some cases, it can actually lead to death.
Mm-hmm. Any other surprises in your research that you came up with?
We were surprised to find that the smallest alligators, the new hatchlings, had very high levels of mercury. So in general, we were seeing that juveniles had kind of a medium level, and then the older, larger animals had the really high levels. But the really small individuals had high levels, likely because the mother is offloading mercury into the eggs when she's reproducing. And so this produces sort of a vicious cycle that just continues, where animals are already being born into an environment full of mercury, with mercury already in their system. So this just exacerbates what we see throughout the food web.
I know you've done the research, but do we have a point source for this mercury coming into this body of water? Do we know where it's coming from, and how do we get rid of it?
The closest I can get is precipitation. So most of the water in the Okefenokee, about 80% of it actually, comes from precipitation, and it is a very large body of water. And so mercury does get into the atmosphere. It kind of follows the water cycle. It can be in water, it can be a vapor. So it's likely coming from an anthropogenic source. It could be a factory nearby. Right. I think one of the best things we can do is look at where the watersheds are coming from. So what kind of runoff is going into the swamp, as well as looking at weather patterns and where all of the rain is actually coming from, and where it's where it's going over before it gets the mercury.
All right, well, let's protect ourselves. Thank you for your research. Really appreciate that, and getting it out to us, because we need to know at least, right? Especially if we want to fish and eat.
Thank you. Kristen
Zumaitis, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Folks, don't go anywhere. You're watching The Take. But coming up with my final take right after this. You want to stay tuned for that. We are looking at heat and more heat, my friends. Today, we should hit 90 degrees for an afternoon high. We have lower humidity over us, so it won't feel as bad, or at least as sticky as it was the last couple of days. We will have the sunshine in abundance as we head through the afternoon. Break out the shades. You're going to need them. Hold on to them as well. Looking at 93 degrees for the high temperature on Saturday under mostly sunny skies. 93 again on Sunday, but by Sunday, that humidity starts to creep back in, so we'll have a 20% chance or a slight chance for an isolated shower or two to pop up. We'll hold on to that slight chance as we head through the rest of next week. But look at those temperatures. 95 on Monday, 96 on Tuesday and Wednesday, then back to 95 on Thursday. You got to factor in that humidity, because it's going to make it feel much hotter out there. We'll be seeing temperatures at least feeling like the triple digits, may get up to 105. If we hit 105 for a heat index, that's where heat advisories will start to be issued, and we could see a couple of those next week. So know that it will be hot. All right. Speaking of hot, you know, it was on this day, back in 1975, that a movie hit the theaters and made people want to stay away from the beach, or at least not go into the water. The movie we're talking about is Jaws. Yeah, it debuted 50 years ago today, and still worth the watch, I think. But be advised, technology may have ruined us just a little bit. You know, back in the 70s, robotics was used to create terror, not the digital effects that we have today. So watching it may feel a little bit corny, so it may be a little bit more funny than scary today. But that movie was a hit. I mean, it was the first movie that grossed more than $100 million at the box office. Today, that would be equivalent to $1.56 billion. In fact, no other shark movie has topped Jaws, including Shark Tales and The Meg, which was pretty decent, I guess. Of course, a movie that big had to have some sequels, right? Well, it had three: Jaws 2, Jaws 3, and Jaws the Revenge. You know, once you start making those sequels, it starts to go down. If you're looking for something to watch this upcoming weekend, try a little old school. Jaws, yeah, it's considered to be the film that launched modern Hollywood filmmaking. Jaws, just the music alone will scare you. Check it out. And make sure you have a good weekend, folks. Thanks for watching us.